says a lot about Bob Costas' interviewing skills, how many of his guests stay over to continue the conversation that they're obviously enjoying. Alan Alda was no different. This one that aired on January 20th, 1993, focused upon the films that Alda had made, The Seduction of Joe Tynan, The Four Seasons, and Paper Tiger, the movie about him portraying George Plimpton becoming a Detroit Lion NFL football player and kind of getting put through the ropes, especially by Alex Karras. So this is a fascinating conversation, as usual, Mr. Costas. Thank you, as always.
Thanks for staying up later. Our conversation with Alan Alda has spilled over into show number 3, and arbitrarily we'll pick it up with some, certainly not all, but some of the movies he's been involved in. And let's begin with The Seduction of Joe Tynan. What's the parallel between this guy's particular circumstances, happens to be a politician, starts out idealistic, has to make inevitably some compromises. What's the parallel between that and any public man or woman?
Well, when I wrote it, I did a lot of research on politicians. I interviewed a lot of male politicians and their wives, and I went to Washington and hung around senators' offices, several senators, and tried to get as many details of their work and their private lives as I could, so it would be realistic. And then I made the connection that you just talked about. It seemed to me that any public person has the same problems as any other public person in many ways. And I had just become very public with the success of MASH.
These people ask anything.
I incorporated some of the things that I had come to understand about how hard it is to have a public life and try to have a private life at the same time.
And I think it's bigger than just saying, well, if you have a public life, people are going to bother you in the airport. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But there's also a persona that you legitimately want to direct. It's reputation, it's communication with the public that's legitimate, as distinct from image, which is just a bunch of PR stuff which a mature person shouldn't care about. But it's hard to control that. It's hard to make what leaves here and goes there be unfiltered.
It's very tough. You know, this is...
Does that make any sense?
Well, it does to me. I don't know if it will to anybody else, but only because I've been through it. And I know, and you've probably been through it. I know... I mean, I connect with a lot of the things you said there. I think, what do you think about this? It seems to me that there are so many people to communicate with in our culture, and we have these means that you and I are hooked into communicating to people, all this technology. And in the same way that much of the rest of our lives has to be lived automatically, I mean, people must live a lot of their lives automatically. It's not denigrating to say you only use a certain percentage of your brain in your conscious life, because you couldn't use everything and survive. You can't walk down a flight of stairs thinking about every muscular motion it takes to get down the stairs, or you'd fall in a heap. You've got to work on automatic pilot a lot of the time to get most of these things done. And one of the things that happens when you're communicating in a mass media way, the way we do, is you have to use things like image, and so, or the public has to use things like image in order to get the message. There's a lot of this gets compressed, and in that compression, in that act of compression, I think is a lot is lost. That's human and textured and ambiguous. When you can sit and spend a couple hours over a beer together, you get a full picture of somebody. Even though they don't say who they are, they reveal who they are, and that gets so compressed, more and more now. You know, you used to have a 40-minute interview on the Today Show. Now you'll have a 6-minute piece, if you know, and that's a lot. That everything is so compressed now that you're working on images, and all the business about politicians and sound bites is another example of that. Everybody's working on, oh yeah, I know what that is. Yeah, okay, what's that? I know what that is. We've almost got to the point of the old joke where the prisoners say the numbers instead of the punchlines of the jokes.
And everybody wants to be able to say, in a half sentence, who Alan Alda is.
Yeah, yeah.
Who the next guy is.
It's not only true of me, it's true. I keep hitting my microphone. I want to apologize.
That's all right. It's not necessarily malicious. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's done with a sneer because there's a lot of mean-spiritedness out there.
You can use it maliciously, like, you know, kids at summer camp get nicknames and then they're used against them. But it's also just a way to get by. People can't get by any other way. There's too much information. You got to tag it. You
got to be able to sum this situation, or worse yet, this person up in a sentence and move on. And I think that's, no matter how well you've been treated, no matter how happy your circumstances are, if you have half a brain at all, it bothers you. Even if the summary is complimentary.
That's right.
It bothers you.
That's right. That's right. Well, because even if it's complimentary, it's still a nickname. It's still, oh, you're the one with the smiling face.
Yeah.
No, I'm not the No, sometimes I go walk in the street sometimes. People would say to me, how come you're not smiling like you do on TV? You say, well, I'm not getting paid as much right now the way I do then. You know, whatever answer you give, it's stupid. You know, fact is, you're a human being, and they don't get that because they've relegated you to the little box.
The Four Seasons is a movie I would imagine you're still pretty proud of.
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah.
And
although I love the memory of it. I mean, I haven't seen it in a while. I mean, I suppose if I saw it, I'd say, oh, gee, I wish I'd done that scene better and stuff.
I thought it made some statements in a subtle way that never had that feeling of, let's step outside this entertainment to lecture for a while, then step back inside of it. It made its statement in a way that just fit the story.
I'd be interested to know what you mean by that.
Well, for example,
I wasn't aware of making a statement. I really was just exploring. I didn't know what the picture was about until after I'd made it, as a matter of fact.
One thing I'm thinking of, early on, the women are sitting around, they're talking about their careers. The men are in the kitchen making dinner. Now, that may not be the most profound statement in the world, but maybe that's the best part of it. It isn't like a statement. It isn't something shouted from the mountaintop. Yeah. These people are just relating to one another as they do, and this is one aspect of it.
Yeah, well, that just was drawn from life. There were a group of us in our little town where we lived in New Jersey for a few years, where several of the couples had been married the same amount. They'd been married in the same year, and we all got together on our anniversaries, or we celebrated a common anniversary, and the men would cook and the women would be in the other room joking about it, and the men would be destroying the kitchen, you know, all sure that they knew what they were doing.
The oil's not hard enough.
Then why have I lost my eyesight?
It's not hot enough. You cannot cook Chinese food unless the oil is 480 degrees. It's a scientific fact.
Did Einstein say that?
Newton, Isaac Newton, inventor of Mushu pork.
Hey, Annie. The magazine is doing a piece on the top 10 executives in the country. How would you like to photograph them for us?
Oh, God, I'd love to be in Fortune. Oh.
But I guess in a way there was a little bit of deliberately showing something unconventional, men cooking while the women didn't.
Why didn't it work as a television series?
Oh, a lot of reasons. I thought that we could do it the way we had done the movie, and it turned out we just didn't have the time to. I couldn't find enough other people to write it, and we couldn't get the writing to work. And see, the thing that worked in the movie was not the funny dialogue. It was the stuff between the words. It was what was under the words. I was always interested in that movie in the subterranean movement, the tectonic movement under the surface. And on television, you don't have much time. And if you say, wait a second, let's stop shooting here for a second. Let's talk about what's under the surface. Everybody goes, yeah, right, okay. Yeah. I think I got that. Okay, let's get a two-shot here, you know. And they start, started to get written on the surface and played on the surface and shot on the surface. And that's a regular television show. And here I was trying to get under the surface, and I was probably subverting the whole thing. I was making it worse instead of making it better. I mean, I really kept looking for a way to do what we did in the movie, but you don't have time. Unless you're lucky and you have a whole bunch of people who say, yeah, I get it. I know what we're trying to do here. And everybody is working toward that.
Let's shift gears here and talk about an old film that naturally I was interested in, Paper Lion. You weren't much of a football fan.
No,
at that time
I never had
right?
a background in sports. I think partly because I was sick as a kid and I didn't play sports much. I swam a lot, but I didn't know about sports. In the Army, when they said, please list your sports, you had to check off boxing, or, and then it had a space for other. I wrote badminton. I was actually very good at badminton, which was a good background for tennis. I love to play tennis.
By the way,
I don't know sports.
Soon to be an Olympic sport.
Tennis?
Badminton.
No, tennis is.
Tennis already is badminton.
Badminton will be. It's too late for me now.
That's what the ancient Greeks had in mind, badminton, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's good, but I think they should play it the old way, with a champagne cork with feathers in it. I mean, that's, I think, how it originated. That's Lord Badminton's
That's the origin of the modern shuttlecock?
That's right, yes. Or...
I'm tapped out now on my badminton knowledge. I can't go any further, which is a relief to all of you, I'm sure.
It's not late enough to do the joke that brings to mind, but go ahead.
Where was I?
You were asking me a question which I was adroitly averting.
I
didn't know about football when I did Paper Lion.
They cast you, I take it. Paper Lion is George Plimpton's story of how he actually suited up with the Detroit Lions. He went through training camp, and he played an exhibition game against the then St. Louis Cardinals. It was a very successful book. They make a movie out of it. You play Plimpton. So why'd they cast you?
They cast me because they thought I'd be wonderful in it. So,
there you go.
Even though they knew I didn't know much, they knew I didn't know much about football. I mean, I played a little touch football with friends and would get hurt doing it, But I worked really hard on that, and I found the football players, the Detroit Lions, like John Gordy and Alex Karras and Mike Lucci. They were very interesting people, and they really many of them liked the violence of the game, which was not part of my background, and I was fascinated by that. Mike Lucci hurt his leg at one point. He said, I can't wait to get back. I said, you really like the game? He says, no, I like to hit people. He was really involved in that. But I got to learn some of the techniques, and I could throw a football 50 yards by the time I finished the picture. That's a long distance, and it used to. I mean, I had to rest my arm in an ice pack for the rest of the day if I did that. But I could do it.
I think the beauty of it is, though, that to the extent that you didn't look like an NFL quarterback, that was okay.
Oh no, I was supposed to look awkward, and it really came naturally to me. I mean, there's a wonderful slow motion shot in the picture where I'm running with the ball, and I start to fumble it out of my hands, and I managed to get it back in my hands again. And that really happened. You saw somebody trying his best who wasn't really talented at it. Although George is a good athlete, I know George a little bit, and I really admire him for the way he's spent his life trying to become a good writer, trying to help other writers, and trying to understand sports and music through this wonderful invention of his of living it and then writing about it. It's a very interesting way to bring the public into that field, because he's every man just like them who's trying to do it.
I think he boxed against Archie Moore.
And I boxed, in playing him, I boxed against Sugar Ray Robinson, who was a very sweet man, a very kind person. He showed me what to do to look sort of like I could box for a few hours, and then we spent the rest of the day doing it on camera. And I walked into a left hook of his and got a bloody nose, and he just felt terrible about it.
So Plimpton, I think, conducted the orchestra with Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah.
He performed in the circus, boxed against Archie Moore, pitched at Yankee Stadium against a group of all-stars.
I pitched against a bunch of Yankees, too.
Mantle among them?
I don't remember. I doubt it. I probably would have remembered that. But, it's scary to pitch a ball at a guy who can bat it back at you.
Yeah, that's the real frightening thing, and people don't realize how close 60 feet 6 inches is.
Oh, man.
I pitched in a game where media guys were playing big league ball players, and the only thing you can think of is, if this guy hits one back at me, I'm going to be killed.
That's right. It's
not
scary.
hurt, killed.
Yeah, you could be killed. When you watch them, it always amazes me. I mean, one of the reasons I don't read much about sports is there's so much nonsense written, like, this guy's a bum, he can't play.
Yeah.
the guy who's writing it, you know, can barely get from his typewriter to the bottle of scotch. And he's, and he's saying that this guy's a bum. This guy can do things that are superhuman compared to what the writer can do. Who is he to complain like this? These people are incredible specimens, you know, and they can, their nervous system is so well developed. Everything about them is beyond what most of us can do. When I sit at the U.S. Open and I watch them serve, and the serve is, I'm in the box where the serve is coming right at me, and I think, and I love tennis, if I were on the court, I would turn my back to the serve, you know? I mean, I wouldn't try to return it. You could get hurt.
When Goran Ivanisevic unloads one at about 115 miles an hour, forget about it.
Yeah.
How hard did you get hit, either on purpose or accidentally,
In
doing
the paper line?
Yeah.
Oh, pretty hard. I mean, they used to like to tackle you. And they just give you a little shot just to, like, it was like a little cute, like a greeting card, you know?
39. Hut. Hut.
Up and at him, George. All right, go ahead, right. Go, George. Come on, George. Keep going, George. Keep going.
One time, in one shot, 11 of them piled on top of me. And that's a lot of people. First of all, they're very heavy.
That's the maximum allowable, actually.
I think it
would
is,
be
yeah.
11.
and at the bottom of the pile was me and Alex Karras, who, when he tackles you, he can't stop kicking his leg. His leg is going like this. I don't know what that motion is. It's sort of like a rabbit or something. And his shoe with the cleats on it was going into my ankle. I got up. I couldn't walk for a half an hour. My foot was asleep for a half an hour.
Other than Plimpton himself, Karras was really the central figure in the book, because a very interesting man, sensitive, and in some ways a sad guy who couldn't resolve a lot of things in his life, and yet
I never knew him to be sad. I don't know.
Tremendous football player who reveled in the violence at that moment in that context. But the gentlest man you could find.
He certainly took care of himself on the field. Yeah, I mean, and he was down in the pit, wasn't he? I mean,
Yeah,
it was in the most violent part of the game, and yet a wonderful sense of humor. He had a very creative sense of humor. He could improvise about anything and just keep you laughing, keep the whole place laughing for hours. And then he became a very successful actor. He's a really interesting guy. I think that playing football probably is good preparation for acting, because you face death and dismemberment. I'm serious about that. You really, I mean, every one of the guys I got friendly with had a shattered knee within 6 months. And they all faced that every time they went out on the field. That there's something happened to their eyes. That it's like talking to a cop. Talk to a cop who's been on the street for 20 years. There's something alive in their eyes, and the same with football players, that you can't get. No actor can imitate that. And it's a really good preparation for acting, because, as Nicholson said about acting is 90% guts, nerve. I think he said nerve. And you got to be brave when you go out there. You have to put aside all the self-doubt that gave you whatever sensitivity you have to be able to go through it. Then you got to put it all aside and say, I deserve to be here. And I think a guy like Karras steps out in front of 20 million people in the audience and says, yeah, I deserve to be here. And he can relax. And comfort and relaxation, in spite of all of the distractions, is the heart of it. And just like these guys can be relaxed out in the middle of a screaming stadium when they know they got this train coming at them.
How often has it happened that you really weren't relaxed and you really didn't believe fully in yourself, and then you saw the finished product and you said, through skill, through whatever finesse I picked up, I was able to fake this and nobody but I knows?
Not very often. If you fake it, it shows. I see it. When I fake it, I see it. Or if I lose heart, I can still see it. And it's communicated. Everybody knows. They may not be able to put their finger on it, but pretty much everybody knows. That hasn't happened much. I mean, usually I'm confident. Although there are times when I've had terrible anxiety attacks where the worst kind of anxiety you can get on the stage is when you say, what makes you think you'll know the next line? And then you say the next line, and then you say to yourself, yeah, you got that, but what makes you think you'll know the next one? And then you start to sweat bullets. It's something that, from time to time, most actors have gotten.
Have you ever flat out forgotten on the stage?
Oh, yeah, sometimes you forget, and then you say what's sensible, and you get back into it. When I was a young man, it was harder for me to do a long run than it is now. I did... was in my 20s. I had 2 plays, The Owl and the Pussycat and The Apple Tree, that I did for a year each. And after 3 or 4 months, after about 3 months, I would forget a line, but I'd know what the scene was about. After about 5 or 6 months, I wouldn't know what the scene was about. I wouldn't know the line, I wouldn't know what the scene was about, but I'd know what the play was about so I could get back into it. After about 8 months, I wouldn't even know what the play was about. I was saying, what am I doing out here? Who are these people? You know, but now, I don't find that now. My ability to concentrate is much, much better, and it's a very fresh experience for me. So I'm happy to have grown.
I'd say we've more or less covered it, wouldn't you?
I don't want to do this for a fortnight.
and you already did it for a fortnight, doesn't it seem?
These people are wondering why I haven't got my shirt launched. We did this all at once, right?
You know, you are getting a little gamey.
I know.
I'll be actually kind of happy to usher you out of here. Thanks. We really enjoyed it.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, see you later.
Thank you for watching Cleveland Live Music. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button, or hit the next video button. Or if you really like what you see, you can do the American thing and send money. There's like information for that stuff in the video descriptions. Just keep watching the videos, that's all I care about. Taped all this junk for some reason. So, again, thank you for all the support making the channel grow. Ain't that America? Rah, rah, rah.